Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Good to see everybody coming in. Working on admitting people. And we may just let's use the chat and pop in your name and your location so we can kind of see where folks are coming from. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
How are y'all?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Oh,
Oh, there's two Susans.
there's another Susan. Oh,
Hi.
we're both Susans. Wow. Susan and Susan. So,
Susan and Susan. And I think both of these Susans also have daughters whom I know.
Yes, you do. Oh,
yes,
that's funny.
it's great. I love that.
Awesome. So yeah, take a moment and pop your location in the chat.
Alrighty. Let's see.
Nice to see where everybody's coming from. And we're a little bit of a bigger group tonight because of our kickoff, probably.
Oops.
So as you're joining, if you want to pop your name and location into the chat, that would be awesome. And just so folks know, you probably heard when you joined, but we do record the Zooms. And funnily enough, some folks really have fun watching the recordings. And sometimes there's, techniques or whatever we're talking about that are helpful too. So if you're uncomfortable with being recorded, it's fine to have your camera off. You can still, ask a question or whatever. It's all good, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
So nice to see so many of you folks. And here we are, we're 5:01. And we still have a few more people coming, but we are going to kick off this first Zoom kickoff for the Dog Star Knit Along with Cashmere Goat. I am Iris Eichenlaub and I work for the Goat. I kind of coordinates the knit alongs and the communications for the knit alongs, and I also do the Goat emails and social media if you follow us on any of those places. So it's nice to see a lot of new faces. Really nice to see a lot of new folks. And I'm just like going around. Yeah, we've got a good mix here. So here's how these knit along meetups work. A lot of times we'll do like a whole round of intros, but with a group of this size, that's why I was suggesting pop your info in the chat, your name and your location. But really, we're here to knit together, to hang out, to ask questions. I know that there are some real colorwork veterans in this group, as well as some folks who are new to colorwork. So if it's all right with all of you, I think what I might do is just let's get to some questions. And then, usually that evolves into like people sharing good tips and ideas and tricks and all of that good stuff, just like, knitters do when we get together. We like to share stuff. So yeah, I'm going to either, if you're not comfortable talking on the camera, that's fine. You can put it in the chat, or if you would like to just pop in with a question, if you have them, the floor is open. Hanne-Marie, nice
Oh,
to see you.
hi.
I'm going to spotlight
Hello.
you. Good to see you.
So I have a quite advanced, like far out question. I know that when you were talking about just really starting yours, you were saying how you didn't like how low the neckline was. How did you end up modifying that?
So I don't like I'll take the spotlight off. I don't like an open neckline.
Oh, neither
I'm
do
a
I.
come up to my neck, please, neckline kind of a gal. Um, and so what I ended up doing, and I think that I put it in my RAV notes, but I think it's also in my notebook. I believe that I just because it's a quite a rapid decrease. I think your decreases right before the neck, over maybe 2 or 3 rounds. It's not
Oh.
very fast, or it's not very slow. So I ended up decreasing down to 80 stitches, and I can't remember what the thought for my size was, but I kind of came up with a I use that calculator that is the World Knitting Calculator to help me do some evenly placed decreases around. And I'll make a note of that so I can make sure to put it in the show notes below. That's how I did it. Does that help?
Yes. And did you just
Okay.
try it on while you did it,
Yes.
or?
Well, at that point, I mean, I had all this sweater to look at, and I kind of imagined what I wanted for my neckline against another sweater and did a little measurement, and then I could sort of do out my gauge and figure out roughly how many stitches I was talking about. I didn't get it right the first time. I had to take back and redo it a little bit, but yeah, I like how it
Okay,
feels.
perfect. Thank you. Still a while away, but I just wanted to have it at the back of my mind.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I so before I see you, Julie, I had a question in the chat from I think maybe KP Well.
Karen.
Karen, hi
Yeah,
Karen.
hi.
How do
Sorry.
folks normally cast on for sweaters? So this is like a big one. Do you have a specific like direction you're hoping for with that, or you just want to hear what the group kind of goes for?
I mean, I typically are using the, what do you call it, the long tail cast on.
Mhm.
But I didn't know if there was a fancier way or one that, I don't know, I'm trying to improve my knitting. So, I'm trying to figure out, is there something else besides long tail cast on that people use?
I see in the chat, Hanne-Marie says she likes to use the long tail, and Mary likes the cable cast on. I mean, I think the long tail is my personal default. That's where I kind of always
Okay.
default to. I've used the German twisted one that feels like long tail, but with a little loop diddy loop. And that's
That's
good
the
for,
one I use. That's the one I use.
yeah,
I use that one a
it's,
lot.
yep. And it's a little bit more stretchy, right?
Mhm.
That's fun
Yep,
to do.
it is. Once you get the hang of this extra little swoop, you feel really cool.
Okay.
I also for this one, and you probably saw this in the emails and whatnot, but I've tried the long tail provisional, which I really enjoy now.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Mhm. So next up, I think it was Julie. You had a question. Hi,
Yeah.
Julie.
Hi there. I have a very specific question because I had a little problem with how they wrote the direction for what to do with the underarm. It's not that I'm a super fast knitter, it's that I'm doing a very small baby size. So I have an arm, and
Yay.
the last direction for the underarm says to knit 3 stitches on the next round after you've gotten your length, and then remove your um, place marker, stitch marker, and then to put these 6 most recent stitches on a separate holder for the underarm. Am I interpreting that correctly, that it's those 3 stitches you just did plus the last 3 from the previous round.
That's how I read it, Julie. And I
Okay.
actually made a little note. I don't know if you can see my little notes down here because I was like, knit X. I just wrote down for myself. Basically, it did seem a little different than I might have written it myself.
Yeah.
But I got it, and so I just made the note to myself for my second sleeve. So like knit X stitches beyond marker, and then you place those stitches that you've just knit. So like in your case, the 3 that were at the end of the round and the 3 that you just knit, just like knit to the 3 beyond the marker and then slide them off.
Okay. Thank you. It that seemed logical, but it didn't read that way.
I know, I was surprised. Usually their patterns are so absolutely clear. So anyway, that was, yeah, good catch. I'm going to note that down because a lot of times during these Zooms and stuff, I take notes about what I might want to write in a future email that might help other folks. So this is a good one.
So am I understanding it correctly? It's like there's 5 new stitches and 5 from the previous row.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those comprise that underarm, but it's just a
Okay.
little bit funny how it's written.
Great.
Let's see. I see Heidi. You have a question. Hi, Heidi.
I have 2 quick questions. My first one, I've gotten this far.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Not to switch to a smaller needle. Do I have to start over? Or can I just switch to a larger needle now?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a larger, what are you going to go to next? Are you on the little baby circulars?
Yeah. But at the end of the ribbing, it says change to larger needles, and I forgot. I forgot to.
Oh, okay. I mean, no problem. It's like, I would actually say probably for your size, you're going to want to keep staying on those needles until you're ready to either go to a magic loop or to at least a 16-inch. And you probably have a little more ways to go.
Oh, okay.
Wait. I think she means this.
Oh,
the
Lord, yes,
size
you're right.
of the
Oh, sorry.
needle.
Yeah.
Yes, Hanne-Marie, thank you. Oh, totally. Gotcha. Yes, so the size of the needle, not the length. I got it.
Right. I'm sorry. This is a 4,
Yep.
and I forgot to change to the 6.
Okay. So you've already done your color work, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Let me spotlight you because it looks really great.
Hmm.
Love that. So I mean, the part about changing is you're on a smaller needle size because you want your ribbing typically to be a little bit snug around your wrist because it's going to get a lot of stretching as it comes on and off your arm. And then we typically move up a needle size or 2 in this case as the pattern recommends, or whatever you need to get your gauge to that larger needle for the body. My hesitation about just telling you to carry on, I mean, always you can take my recommendation grain of salt, but typically people tend to knit their color work a little tighter anyway. So my concern would be if you sally forth with your sleeve, that color work could be sucking in just a little bit more. So if you wanted to keep it as is, I'd say like do the same thing on the other sleeve that you've just done. You know, get through your color work and however many more rows you have, and just make it symmetrical. If it fits over your wrist,
Oh,
great.
so I can change now, but do the same change at the same time on the other sleeve.
Yes.
That would be what I would do.
Okay.
If you didn't want to have to take out all that beautiful color work, because it does look really pretty, as long as it fits over your wrist and is not looking like it's going to be too tiny. That's the caveat.
Okay.
Yeah, look at that.
All right.
Anybody else have a dissenting opinion or another approach?
I just have a tendency to, when I'm knitting, I find my error and I cannot live with there being an error. So
No.
I'd start over. That would be me, but
Yep.
I agree with your assessment that just if you're going to continue on, just make sure your other sleeve mirrors the one that you've completed.
Yep.
And then can I ask one more?
Of course.
I'm up to, well, I'm up to there, which is still on the sleeve. It says knit 2 rounds, work charty. I did the charty. And then I knit the 5 rounds. And then the next instruction says work these 6 rounds, a total of 4 times.
Yes.
So what 6 rounds is she talking about?
Talking about the increase round and talking about the 5 rounds that
Oh.
follow. Yep.
Thank
So
you.
that's one of those places where I like on my own pattern kind of had a highlight with those two sort of together because I wanted to remember that. So I don't know, can you see that?
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
And a lot of different ways that you can mark out those 6 rounds to keep track. Some people like a row counter, some people like a good old-fashioned pencil and a tick mark system. Some people use stitch markers, a lot of different ways.
Okay. And then knit all rounds, so that would be 6 more rounds and 6 more rounds until it reaches the number as long as you want.
So yep, the 6 rounds, and then it's gonna tell you, depending on what size you're making, a total of such and such number of times with those increases. Until you have, or until you have X number of stitches, which is that next paragraph.
And then it says knit all rounds until sleeve measures whatever, 50
Yep.
inches. So that means the 6 rounds over and over again?
Nope. So you're gonna repeat your 6 rounds. And if you notice at the end of like if we're reading along, so you said work these 6 rounds, a total of, I'm guessing you're a smaller size, so probably 4 times or 6 times or 10 times, whatever, not the child size, but the smaller
Right.
women's size, a total of X number of times. And then you've got so many stitches for your size. And then you just knit around and around and around and around, just no more increases, just knit straight up until your sleeve, measures. And, so you can, if you see on mine, like here's the increases, and I get to about here and I'm just knitting straight, no more increases. So it's like a gradual slope and then straight at the end.
Okay. Thank you.
Yay, you're welcome. Any other folks with questions?
I just asked a question about incorporating more than the, it looks like the adult version does use 4 different colors. Am I reading that correctly?
I think the adult version doesn't have, I don't believe it specifies anything beyond a main color and a contrast color, but like they're in the, you can certainly add, and people in person have been, yeah, so like in the chart notes, shown in 2 colors, but you may wish to use multiple main colors and contrast colors on that chart page. You can see that written.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of folks in that we've seen that have been doing some beautiful multiple colors, 3 colors, 4 colors, but there's also plenty of folks just going for 2 colors, and some people going for like a 3rd color, but just very sparingly. And it's sort of, that's the fun part of the design process. One of our knitters was playing with her, like she was doing a swatch, or she was just looking at colors and how she might use them together. So a lot of options.
Would you recommend that I'd like to do four colors. I have the yarn, and would you recommend that I sort of plot it out by chart just to see the sequencing of it?
So there were a lot of folks who were in the in-person meetup kickoff. They had their graph paper and even just not so much like getting real into the weeds with their graph paper, but initially they were just sort of like coloring, you know, there's a diamond, and I've got my pens or my pencils and I'm kind of coloring into play. But then like in the example of at least a couple of folks who had, you know, the sleeve is such a nice place to play with color, because if you haven't knit a whole lot if you don't like something, but looking at the sleeve as a little bit of a place where you could potentially play a little bit with the kind of lower stakes to see maybe combos or placements that you might want to play with.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Vicky's saying in the chat that she's using the Tin Can Knit app, which is super helpful to just see those sizes just seeing the numbers pertaining to her own size. Yes, Vicky, definitely love it. And also nice to see you here for another knit along.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Great. And then Hanne-Marie added in the chat about doing two colors, but you could definitely do like a color for the main color, color 2 for the first and second rows of the single stitches, and then a color for the single stitch in the middle of the diamond. That's definitely an approach that I was seeing some other folks take. So, you know, right in the middle of the, like that little white center stitch, I've seen some folks who have chosen to make that a little pop of color. And then even some of them like doing some of these little singletons as a little accents. So I think sort of what you were talking about, Hanne-Marie, maybe. Is there a row counter in the Tin Can Knits app? Beth McLean, I don't know. I haven't seen that. Anybody else? Hanne-Marie?
Yeah, if you want to spotlight me, because I can show, because I'm in the
Yes.
middle of doing it.
Perfect.
So the way it is so I'm currently on the sleeve section. So you press down on this little guy here, and every time you repeat that, it'll jump back up to the first part. And then it goes down again and jumps back up. And once you complete the 17, it then goes to the next one.
Wow.
So how
Down
does it,
arrow.
So as you can see there, I'm on row 15 or increase 15 of 17.
how does it know how many times you've done that?
So it won't know the knit 5. So you have to count that yourself. I'm using a stitch marker just saying. But once you hit the little arrow down there again, it pops back up to the first part, and then it adds 1 to the counter there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
I
that's
had-
how it counts. And then you
Yeah.
just have to go up if you need to redo it. I'm on my
Okay.
3rd attempt for the sleeve because I've had to change my increase distance, but
Yeah.
I don't have,
Fantastic. Thank you so much for like showing us that. Beth, did you have
Yeah.
a follow-up?
no, I was gonna have a question. I don't have all of those little symbols at the bottom.
Are you
mine
good?
just popped up when I was scrolling down. So once you start the app, you get them I got them at the bottom. I didn't activate them or anything. I just put in, so when I put in my size
Right.
and everything that I was using, and then when it came up as a single pattern, it started off with that. So it doesn't come up at the start, but once you scroll down to the pattern itself, it starts.
Okay,
and
I'm
you
not
get down there.
I'm not seeing it in mine. I'll keep playing around to see if I can find
Yeah, it might not come up until you reach that point.
Yep.
I can't remember now if it was like at the start or if it just had the single arrow down to continue to the next section, and then it popped up when you got to the increase area. Because I think it goes away once you get down again, because obviously you're not needing to row count again.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna have to
Well,
go with that.
interesting. So if I I was just playing around myself because I've been using the paper pattern and the other one. Let me just see.
Yeah, see, that's what mine looks like, what you have.
So if I continue to do the down arrow, I think I'll probably, because like I'm still on the sleeves, let me just get down there.
Got it.
But so does that make sense? Like it appears once you've advanced with that down arrow
Okay.
through it. Okay, cool. We're all learning things. Okay, let's see. Kari Rice. How are you, Kari? Nice to see you. Kari's saying, am I foolish to do a child's size 2 to 4 for a 3-year-old? I mean, I guess if it was a big 3-year-old, maybe.
Oh, no.
But if it's not really.
No.
You
I
know,
just wondered what people thought, whether
Well,
it was.
I'm doing a 6 to 8-year-old for my granddaughter who's 6 but will be 7 soon. I mean, I just took her measurements and she kind of fit in there.
Oh, you're so good. You probably do a gauge too.
I've learned, yes, I do.
I'm doing it there with much thanks to that wonderful tutorial on a gauge in the round. Thanks so much. Here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd be inclined to go for that 2 to 4 for a 3. Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing the
I
same
guess
thing.
unless your gauge was off and you ended up with a too small sweater, but if you did your swatch, then you should be good.
I'm also doing a 2 to 4 for a 3-year-old.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That'll be
company.
Yeah, you've got company and it'll be cute to see. And I think also Priscilla also was in that same size, which is great. It'll be fun to see some little dog stars to coming. Are you guys making the little ones gonna do the color work at the like above the waist hem?
No.
Yes.
I'm not.
Don't know yet.
TBD. Cool. Lucy Portland, nice to see you, Lucy. Hi.
Hi, I have 2 questions. I kept my one sleeve on the needles. Is the sleeve supposed to come all the way up to the underarm? Like, I don't want to make my sleeves too long, and most of the sweaters I've done don't start at the bottom of the sleeve and work up. So I have the option of trying it on multiple times to make sure the sleeve's not too long.
Yes. So that is definitely and you made the car bath. How were your sleeves on the car bath?
Oh, they're good.
Okay. Also bottom up though. So that's
Oh, they
good.
were.
I mean, yeah.
Forgot. Okay.
So you could measure up against your car bath. You could also sort of cheat the system a little bit, and you could knit to what you think might be the right length. We all have different length arms, different parts of our body, different shapes.
Yeah.
But you could throw your sleeves on a barber cord or whatever you're using, and just like hold them maybe. And so then when you're at the point where you've got your body mostly knit, I always tend to think that for my preference and fit, I want my sweater sleeve to be like a couple inches below my underarm. And so this is where it's like helpful to maybe have somebody that can look at you as you're like, okay, here's the top of my underarm, and you know, measure it's just awkward to try to measure your own underarm to wrist length. I've never been able to do it. And so if you go from like your true underarm all the way to where you would want to measure on have your sweater fall to your wrist and then subtract 2 inches, that's comfortable to me. But you can also, like, once you have the bust of the body of your sweater, and that's probably going to be on a big barber cord, you could do a sort of Franken try on and have sort of the body coming up to where it needs to be on your bust. And like, okay, how's this line up with where my sleeve is right now?
I thought about the barber cord because I have multiple barber cords that I can use. So that won't be an issue because I know if I make them as long as I'm supposed to, according to the pattern, they're going to be way too long because my arms are short. I'm thinking of going to maybe 18 inches and that'll work for my arm. So I'll do
and
the
also
barber cord.
measure your carbeth sleeve too.
Okay,
if you like that
I
length.
didn't think, I forgot about the carbeth being bottom up. Second thing, when you did your yoke, did you do the wrap and turns or did you, I want to turn them into German short rows. I don't like wrap and turns because I have a hard time seeing them when I have to incorporate the wrap.
So, and other people probably have other opinions. For me personally, I find the German short row leaves a little hole that I don't actually like very much in the finished knit. And maybe I'm doing something wrong. I find in general, for me and my knitting, the wrap and turn makes for a tidier, something I can't see, as you say. So if you have trouble seeing them, throw on a locking stitch marker on that stitch so you can really, so it's really right up in your face, and you don't have to wonder.
Okay. Thank you.
Yay. Anybody else have German short row versus wrap and turn opinion?
Depending on the yarn, I don't always pick up the wrap and turn because sometimes I get the weird little hole when I do that. And I'm not sure why. I have some projects where my wrap and turn is flawless and others where it's just sort of bump, bump, hole, bump.
Any other questions? Heidi, there's no limitation on number of questions, so you just keep asking.
So I just have a question about the white yarn here. Since I'm done with it on the sleeve, what do I do with it? Cut it off?
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. At this point, you can give yourself a nice tail, maybe a 6-inch, 7-inch tail, so you can weave that in later on. But yep, you can be done with that for right now.
Okay. Thank you.
I see Barbara. Barbara, you joined.
I
How
did.
are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did. I was late. I'm sorry. And I was hearing people talking about gauge. And but people were using 4s for kid sweaters. Is that true?
So the 4 is a 4 for the cuffs.
Yeah.
For the ribbing. The pattern suggests it's a 4 for the ribbing and then a 6 for the body is to achieve the gauge. But as you know, you could be knitting at a different way and may need a different needle.
As you know, as all my gauges are always very strange, but so I'm doing a 4. I'm using a 4 needle for an adult sweater. And the gauge came out perfect when I did that. Because when I did 6, it was 2, I had only 19 stitches or something like that. So anyway, I changed it. And so when I heard everybody's doing 4s for a child, I was a little nervous. That's all.
Hey, if your measurement comes out how it's supposed to, I'm also on the 4 for my body, but on my sleeve, I was on a 6 and then had a 4 for the ribbing at the cuff, 6 for the sleeve body, but I was back down to a 4 and it was kind of crazy making. I was like, what? This is so different. So
Well, I
anyway,
know,
just
because then when I was doing the 4 for the arm, and I said, does that make it a 2 for the cuff? But I didn't. I did the cuff in a 3 because I couldn't even imagine doing a 2. I feel like I'm making socks now. It's a sweater. So I was like, I'll be here forever and ever. But anyway, nice to see everyone. And and that's my question, but I'll just keep going and see how it goes.
perfect.
Yeah, my
Well,
sister smaller than me, so she could have the sweater if it doesn't fit, but I think it will fit.
awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to see you.
Thank you.
Mary, you've got your hand up. How's it going?
Going fine. I am doing the provisional cast on so that I don't have to fool with figuring out how long things need to be yet.
Mm-hmm.
But my question is about how much do you think you need to do for each of the sleeves and the body before you join them together? Like 2 or 3 inches?
Oh, I gotcha. Wait, so that's
Yeah.
your sleeve,
Yep, this is a
original
sleeve.
cast on. Mhm.
Yep, right? So I've got a little bit of maybe 2 inches or so done here, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then I think I'm ready. I can set this one aside, do the other sleeve, then set that aside, and then do the body, same depth, right?
Yep.
And then join everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just didn't know if you had any thought on how much you needed to just give it the weight you needed to be able to, you know, measure how things were going to go from the bust line up.
I mean, I definitely had somebody who was doing what you're doing and was talking about wanting to give her like not really, because not really being sure how much she was gonna be doing beyond those increases, you know. So I would say probably 3 inches
Yeah.
would
Okay.
be safe. And you could also, I haven't looked back at the there's not really a part of the schematic that gets that detailed,
Right.
but my sense would be like 2-3 inches. I mean,
Okay.
mainly it's gonna what's gonna affect like how it fits is there's also going to be a lot of the sweater body hanging
Right.
down too. So
Right.
so I think you're fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then I can just figure out what everybody was talking about earlier, how many you leave off for that underarm section, right?
Yeah, you'll be able to look at the pattern and see
Okay.
where you're at for that.
All right. Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. A couple notes in the chat. Bev is asking if folks prefer a knit 1 purl 1 ribbing or a knit 2 purl 2 to use the same on the sleeves and the main sweater. Anybody have opinions about any of those 2 questions? Does your Barbara, is that you raising your hand?
I do. I like 2 and 2. 2 knits, 2 pearls, and I would do the same for all parts of the sweater.
And would you do that on the children's sizes too?
I did.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know on that. I'm not sure.
I did,
Vicky?
and it looks fine. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think you can see it because it's really dark, but yeah. But anyway, I just don't like switching back and forth.
Every time.
Yeah.
It is a pain.
Yes.
That is what I'm doing, but I'm doing a baby size. So as a matter of scale, I decided I ought to do 1 by 1.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And then Kari says, must I do a gauge swatch? I mean,
No. Sorry, I didn't. A color gauge swatch.
a color gauge swatch. Yeah, color gauge swatch. I don't know. What do people think? Are people doing a color gauge swatch?
No.
Yay!
I didn't.
I mean, it's like, here's the thing about it is, right, you know, as long as you're being aware of the tension that you're maintaining in your color work and you're paying attention to those floats and the length of them and stretching your stitches out so you get a nice, what we call the smile on the back of your knitting, you know, I'm a really slow color work knitter. I am not fast. And it's because I am constantly like doing a stitch, stretching my little thing, double checking at the end of each round to make sure I haven't messed something up. Because when I don't check, invariably, I notice it at the end of the following round. And so then it's 2 rounds of color work to take out. So, I mean, I think the concern is if you tighten up on your color work, but if you are comfortable, then I would say maybe not important.
Okay. Thank you.
Looks like other people had the same idea too, not just me. Can you review the gauge procedure for arm versus body? Can you talk a little bit more about what you're thinking of with that question?
Well, it sounded as though people were getting different gauges depending, I guess, if they're working in the round on double pointed needles versus, I don't know. So the woman earlier said she was doing a 4 for her arm and I think a 6 for her body or something like that. And so I just wanted to know how are you determining that?
So I mean, the thing about gauge is it's so squirrely and it can change even within your project, which is a little bit maddening when we go through the trouble of like swatching for gauge. I think that the thing to remember is that, and this is definitely true for me personally and may not be true for everyone, but we tend to we tend to knit smaller circumference items a little bit tighter. A lot of people do, so, maybe not everybody. So I think there can be a little bit of a discrepancy between the two. So if you've done your swatch on the larger needles as the pattern suggests, and whatever that needle it turns out to be for you personally, that larger size needle would be what you would be knitting the body of your sweater with.
So sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but when
Yep.
you say about the gauge, the swatch, so I mean, I've seen some techniques where people are always knitting, like not knitting in the round, but knitting, then having that huge loop in the back and knit, and how critical, so you feel it's pretty critical to do the gauge that way if we're going to be knitting in the round, is that right?
So so in our YouTube playlist for the Dog Star KAL, there's 2 methods for circular swatching, as you're speaking of, the one with the big loops and the one with the little twizzlies at the side. And the common wisdom is if you're going to be knitting in the round, you should be swatching in the round. I mean, in that method where you're just knitting as you would be in the knitted in the round finished garment.
Okay.
And yeah, so because there can be some differential between the tension at which you purl versus your knits. So these are pretty detailed, nerdy little aspects of the craft. And I went a lot of years without knitting swatches, and I had more or less success. I think maybe we all have had something similar where, hey, I would read a pattern and see something about gauge and go like, oh, that's interesting. Like I picked the worsted weight and I picked the needles they told me in the pattern. And I just went for it. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
Okay. I had done my swatch just knit purl that way. And yeah, so I'm thinking that I'll just spend a little more time and do
I don't know what's going on.
see what the difference is.
And I would also add that I always recommend to people that, so I usually start with the needle that the pattern recommends, and I will knit usually between 1.5 and 2 inches before I give myself a little check, a check with the measuring tool. I haven't blocked it. That's sort of the final step with gauge swatching when you're really serious. But usually after about like 2 inches, I can kind of take a little spot check with my measuring tool and have a sense of, am I on the right track? Usually, because I'm a loose knitter, I'm going down a needle. And so I'll just throw a row of pearls in on my swatch and I'll change needles because I want to be able to compare. I've learned this about myself. I like to compare like multiple sections. I usually do, when I'm swatching, I sometimes end up doing 3 needle sizes because even if I think, oh wow, that second needle size really seems spot on, I kind of like to have that third needle size to really know that I've for sure found the sweet spot with my measurement and with the fabric, sort of the fabric that I like the feel of. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Anybody else have any gauge swatching wisdom to throw in here?
I do color work on one needle up, one needle size up, because otherwise I noticed that it gets much more dense if I do the same needle size that I do the main body.
That's a good point.
Yep.
And I also knit from 2 hands, so I have color on each hand, so I don't know if it's matter or not, but
yeah. Thank you, Zena. It's nice to have you back for another KAL.
I'm glad to be here. I'm still waiting for my yarn to come.
Ah.
So didn't start yet, but can't wait. I will be knitting 2 sweaters for my grandchildren, one for 1-year-old and another for 2.
Nice. That's awesome.
I want to have them same sweaters.
I love it. Well, are they going to be the same colors or a little bit different color palette?
A little different. One will be light gray with the dark color work, and another one will be dark blue color work and light blue the body. The main
Nice.
color light blue. So a little different, but still the same.
Yeah.
Love that.
You have boys or girls for your grandchildren?
Boys.
Oh, sweet.
And what yarn did you choose?
I was looking for a superwash because my son and daughter-in-law, they just throw everything in the washer machine. So I needed something that will not shrink on the first wash. So I choose what is Cascade 220 Superwash.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
It feels more like a wool because it has this I think for color work it still will do. Superwash not, I know that superwash is not good for color work, but I think this yarn will be okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it has those little threads that will catch to each other. You know, when you do color work, you can't do on the yarn that just I don't know how to explain it in English.
So the superwash, I'll jump in. The superwash process is a process where the kind of outer fuzzy hairs, like you see the halo on this very fuzzy sweater,
superwash wouldn't have it.
takes those away. So superwash can feel a little softer, sometimes feels a little slipperier, which is why for color work it can be a little more challenging as you're negotiating, you know, moving your colors around and stuff. So not that you can't do color work superwash, and as Zena said, some superwash yarns manage to keep a little bit of the woolly feeling. Like we have Patagonia, which is kind of on the lighter side of DK / sports, and it is a organic merino that's washable, and it somehow still feels woolly. So we've seen some nice color work with that.
What is it? Because I was looking in your store and I couldn't find anything superwash. So if you
It's
can
not
just
it's not tagged as superwash. I think it's just washable. So I will definitely pull that. I'll pop it in the link for you to look at.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
But usually superwash is too smooth for color work.
Mhm.
That's what word I was looking.
Okay.
Smooth. Yes. Great.
Oh, great.
Other
Thank
other questions from folks?
Yeah, in terms of the in-person participation, do you have to register every week to participate in the store?
Yes, because the demand is so high, so
Okay.
we feel like it offers a little bit more opportunity for different folks to get in the mix.
Okay.
Well, go ahead, Kari.
I just wondered, you were talking about doing the gauges and the different needle sizes. And I'm wondering, do you do separate swatches for each different one, or you just continue on and change your size and look at it? Probably a
Yep.
stupid.
No, it's not. I like to see it all in one thing because then I can really kind of see where it's like getting a little bigger or it's more dense. And for me, I just like the one I make these like long, silly little swatches. I mean, bigger swatches, and I always save them for the project. And if I'm desperate for that yardage at the end, I can always unravel at the end. But I usually somewhere along the way, I'm like, no, wait a minute, let me look back at my swatch. Did I really, and being a little neurotic, I guess.
Okay.
So I see that we currently have a mother-daughter on this Zoom. So exciting. Christina joined, and she is Susan M. Well, there's another Susan M. Susan Meridian's daughter, Christina, who I know is one of our local goats, Christina is. And it's fun to see you and your mom on the Zoom.
I don't see Christina. Are you on the next page for me?
She's on the next page for me. I don't know if she's on the next page. There are other thoughts, other questions? These have all been great questions and good conversation starters as we get going. Isla's adding that vintage DK is a great washable option too. Yep, absolutely. Not super wash, but it is washable because it's about 50-50 acrylic and wool. We sell a lot of it for people knitting stuff for kids, and it has a really nice soft hand. It does not feel plasticky, but yeah. Thanks, Isla.
That's what I have.
Nice.
Iris, sorry, I'm such a blabby mouth. I got the English, what is it, DK that you had?
The blue, yes.
I'm so happy with it because I was worried that it was going to be too scratchy for a child, but it's not. It's so soft and lovely.
It's so beautiful. That yarn, we all have a crush on it at the store. So good. Yeah, I mean, not super wash or whatever, but it's just a delight in the hand to knit with and a delight to wear. I love my sweater knit in that yarn. I would have done this one in that. I mean, I knew that yarn would be like beautiful for color work, and I would have gone with it, except for I was like, I've never knit anything in Kathmandu DK. I should get out of my already established habits. Anyway, so yay. Glad you're liking it.
Which one is that?
That is the Fleece BFL from West Yorkshire Spinners.
Oh,
I
was looking to.
I knit my Sea Haven in it in that forest green, and it's just such a beautiful 100% wool that does really feel soft. I mean, soft enough so that it does not bother my neck at all. Really, it's lovely. Nice colors, not a huge palette, but they're gorgeous, every single one of them. And I know we're getting more in stock because that we get that yarn through Barocco, and Barocco I think did a major inventory, so our shipment from them was a little delayed, so it should be by the end of this week.
Oh, good.
Wendy from New York. Hi, Wendy from New York. How are you?
I'm good. I just have a comment. You know, when I was doing blocks, I've knit a very, very long time. I'm an old lady. And when I was first taught to block, we were told to put clothespins on the bottom just to see when you wear a sweater, the natural weight of the sweater. I don't know if you do anything like that or no.
I have heard about that. What about other people? I don't typically do that to my swatches, but I have heard about it.
I think it stops the surprise of when you block that you wind up with a, 6-foot long sweater, which happens, just saying, not to me,
Happened to me.
I think it's a great idea. And I feel like somebody was telling me about this with a particular yarn that they were worried would grow. You know, maybe if you've got a nice woolly wool and you feel pretty confident that it's going to be holding its form. But I think it was a customer who was saying they had a yarn and they were a little suspicious that it could be a real grower, and they used the clothespin technique.
Yeah, it was probably superwash. That's it.
Thanks for that. Thank you. Glad you're here with us, and welcome to the knit along.
Thanks.
Other questions? Other thoughts? Is it Barbara?
Yes, I'm sorry to keep coming on. I have a question. Have people used the Tin Can app at all? Did you talk about that before? I missed it.
We were talking a little bit about it, and we made a discovery thanks to a question from Beth that Hanne-Marie was able to help us with. There's actually a row counter that is built in. I mean, a sequencing counter, maybe not a specific row counter, but when you get to the part on the sleeve where you're having to repeat your sequence of 6 rows or whatever, you kind of have to advance through the parts of the pattern using the down arrow in the app. But once you get there, Hanne-Marie gave us a good little demo of how it looks. And it doesn't count it doesn't know how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So you were saying, Hanne-Marie, that you were using a different counting mechanism for the 5 plain rows?
Yeah, I just had similar, but I just finished an increase row, so I can show you how it counts if you want.
Yeah.
So let me just see. So as you can see, it says now 15 of 16. My highlighted color is the one that says knit the 5 rows. So then you just go on the down arrow and then it pops back up, and you can see now it's 16 of 17.
Wow.
So it's super handy.
Well, I think the part that's so handy is that your size is the only thing that pops up. I think that's incredible.
It's so good.
I'm so excited about that.
Yes.
That I'm not going to be reading something wrong and doing something wrong. I really like that part of it. Yeah.
It's also helpful. I was speaking with someone who was in the shop who was newer to colorwork, who said she really found it helpful because she's new to reading charts, that she could, kind of compare, because you can, in the app, you can compare the chart to then the written instructions. And that was helping her build her literacy with the chart reading.
Right. Exactly. Thanks.
Well, I think this might be our biggest knit-along kickoff Zoom group we've ever had. It's so exciting to see all of you here. Yeah, so a lot of new faces, which is super exciting, and a lot of our knit-along veterans as well. We have a couple more minutes though, and I want to make sure that we answer the questions that are in this virtual space. So if folks do need to pop off, totally get it. We'll be here again next Wednesday. The link stays the same from your email. And I always republish it in the week's email for the knit along. The knit along emails come out Friday mornings. And so I sort of am pulling from some of the tips and stuff that you all are sharing and themes from the meetups in store too. And that's kind of builds the content that goes into the email newsletters too.
I have, if you don't mind going back to the sleeve thing,
Okay.
just want to make sure I understand because I think I did it wrong. So to prepare for the sleeve, to prepare sleeve for yoke join, remove the beginning of the round marker and knit, for me, it was knit 5 stitches and place the previous 10 stitches worked on hold for underarm. So I didn't count the 5 I knit. Was it supposed to be the 5 I knit and then the 5 before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yep. It's just written a little weird. Like I wish they just said like knit X number of stitches beyond the marker, then slide this stitch number total onto your waist yarn or whatever you're using. And that to me makes sense in my brain, but I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least I can go back and fix that because it's just on waist yarn. So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And it looks like Christina, you have a question.
I'm just wondering if anyone else is, I'm a little bit behind it, I will admit. When they're casting on for their sleeves or their body, are they doing any technique for their ribbing, like a rib table cast on or any other method other than just putting those stitches on and kind of a cast on and then starting to knit purl for your ribbing?
Anybody doing something fancy for your rib cast on? No. Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. Well, then I have to do it. So
you'll have to report back next week on how that went, what you chose.
Okay, will do. I was thinking because I'm making a kiddo size, I just remember, as you're growing up, you're always rolling up those sleeves or I don't know, playing, you need them rolled up. So I was going to avoid doing color work on the bottom of the sleeve and make sure that I had plenty of stretch so that those sleeves roll up all the way up the arm for whatever purpose they need them.
Washing hands, playing in the mud pile. Yes.
All acceptable activities. We love it.
Excellent. Good consideration. Well, we are here at the top of the hour. Bev, who is on here, I think on a different screen than what I'm seeing right now. Bev is the one who coined this is the fastest hour of the week. It truly is. It always feels like such a fun group to be in with all of you. And, if you have questions or things come up between our Zooms, you can always email me. My email's always at the bottom of the knit along emails. But you guys are off to a great start, and so looking forward to seeing everybody making the progress that they're making and checking in again, hopefully next Wednesday with us. Thanks for being here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good
See you all next
night.
week.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank
You
you.
You too.